It is Michigan football overreaction Monday. Typically we do Sunday, but we did the Alabama-Michigan preview yesterday after our live college football playoff. Rankings reveal Michigan is number one in the country, number one in the polls for the first time since January 3rd of 1998. And you know what else is number one in male grooming? And that is Manscaped, the sponsor of today's show. Great for stocking stuffers. 20% off with promo code GOBLUE, no spaces, at manscaped.com. We'll tell you more about them here later in the show. First overreaction here on a Monday, 28 days away from Michigan, Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Overreaction number one is we're number one. January 3rd, 1998, right, 2 days after Michigan played Washington State in the afternoon, and then Nebraska and Tennessee played in the evening. Michigan was number one in the AP poll, took home the national championship. Now, 25 years and 11 months later, they are number one again. And I think it's insightful that it's the first time in now the 10th year of the college football playoff era that the number one team in the final CFP rankings going into the playoff is not an SEC team. It's been Georgia. It's been, of course, Alabama plenty of times. It's been even LSU. And then Clemson's had, I think, 2 of the 10 times. So this is the first time it's not been an SEC team or Clemson going into the playoff as the number one team. Speaking of other elite company, I found this one pretty encouraging and just pretty, a good, job by Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, etc. Michigan and Clemson are the only teams in this 10-year journey of the 4-team playoff to enter the playoff games as a top 2 seed in 3 straight seasons. Clemson actually did it 4 straight seasons, 2015, 16, 17, and 18. 2 of those years, 16 and 18, of course, resulted in Dabo Swinney's 2 national championships. We'll keep it rolling here on the Michigan Football Report, but did want to remind you guys that we are approaching 30,000 subscribers. We're at 29,601, so 399 of you can help us get to 30,000, a big milestone. We'll have daily videos all December long. We'll have post-game coverage, etc., after the Michigan Football Bowl game, leading into the national championship game on January 8th, all the way through signing day on February 7th. Subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/MichiganTV. So just my thoughts here. We've said this for several weeks, right? We said it for me for a month. Going back to the Connor Stallion stuff, going back to Jim Harbaugh suspended, then maybe not suspended, then suspended. And it remains true now. You're playing Alabama, the SEC champ. You're playing them out in the Rose Bowl. There's only one thing left to do. Win the whole whole fucking thing. I'm going to say the word. I don't care if the YouTube overlords censor me and don't show this to people who don't like swear words. I want to swear because that's how excited I am for this Michigan football team. 26-0 win over Iowa. In a game that, frankly, Michigan probably could have got a first touchdown after the Samaj Morgan punt return down to the 5-yard line. That's probably all the scoring they needed, right? I don't think Iowa was really ever a threat. They only got the ball inside of the Michigan 40-yard line that one time, and it pretty much instantly resulted in a catch, then fumble. Forced by Mike Sainristil, one of 2 on the day. He was your Big Ten championship game MVP. So Michigan is number one. It feels good. I think this season's a success. I think Houston or bust is still the mantra. The bust is a tough part I'm dealing with because you're still playing Alabama. We'll talk about them here in a second. But this season has lived up to the billing. There haven't been these huge plays and all this different stuff, et cetera. But this season, especially with the Jim Harbaugh, 2 different suspensions, this team has come through, and Michigan is number one. Remember, these are not my overreactions. These are the overreactions of the media, the fans, other fan bases, and this is the one I keep seeing. Alabama will kill Michigan. This is not even going to be a game. Saban's going to destroy Jim Harbaugh. Saban's got a month to prepare. All this different stuff, says the casual fan. Who's the casual fan? The fan that doesn't know any better. He looks at team names. He looks at past results. He says, oh, well, Alabama versus Michigan. That's like anybody just like, oh, well, the Lakers, of course they're going to beat the Detroit Pistons. Well, it didn't happen, did it, back in 2005. They're forgetting how dominant Michigan's been, right? Even beating 2 top 10 teams without their coach, without their head coach, Jim Harbaugh. They went on the road, beat a top 10 Penn State, came at home, beat a very, very good Ohio State team, and forgetting how mediocre Texas has been for a lot of times this year, right? They lost early on in the season to Texas, right? Reminder, at home, lost by 10 points to Texas, and it was a game very similar to Michigan-Ohio State, in that Texas had a chance, Alabama had a chance, but Texas just kept the ball, pounding it down their throat in the fourth quarter. Alabama's defensive line couldn't do anything to get the ball back, resulted in a 10-point loss. You see some mediocre stuff there, right? USF win by 14. Okay. decent win over a top 15 Ole Miss at the time. Mississippi State, you get a big win. Had to hold on, right? It was a very close game against Texas A&M. Same with Arkansas. Arkansas just couldn't get the ball back for one last possession themselves. Average game, mediocre game against Tennessee. It probably was a little bit more lopsided than the 14-point final score. But then you get into the month of November, and it's had its ups and it's had its downs, right? They beat LSU, 14 points. It's probably about what it was from watching anything about watching that game. They dominated a Kentucky team that was kind of on the cusp of maybe, hey, they're going to be a top 20 team the rest of the season. Chattanooga. But then do we forget about Auburn? Do we forget about they needed a miracle of miracles, a 31-yard Hail Mary when they only had two defensive linemen rushing the quarterback. Jalen Milroe sat back there for like 11 seconds and just let his guys run all over the end zone, finally hit a wide receiver in the back corner of the end zone to get the win over an Auburn team that the prior week at home had lost by 3 touchdowns to New Mexico State. I understand they beat Georgia a week later, but Texas has been much more inconsistent. They've got one of the shakiest offensive lines in all of college football. I'll talk more on Michigan and Alabama, look at some stats and the rest of this Overreaction Monday in a second. But Santa Baby, the season for a fresh cut is finally here with the sponsor of today's show, and that is Manscaped. The leaders in below-the-waist grooming just have launched their 5th-generation performance package to help you avoid another silent night in the bedroom this year. Take care of the fellas in your life with the new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra and watch your South Pole shine like never before. Get the best stocking stuffer of all by going to manscaped.com and using code GOBLUE, no spaces, promo code GOBLUE for 20% off and free shipping. Mrs. Claus will thank you. Hey, Mrs. Claus, help thank yourself. Get this for the guy in your life. Manscaped is the one-stop shop for all of your holiday needs. They have the perfect gift in the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, which has amazing things. Let me read off what they has for you. It's got the Lawnmower 5.0, right? The Ultra Groin and Body Hair Trimmer. The Weed Whacker 2.0, a little nose and ear hair. The Crop Smooth Soother Ball Aftershave Lotion. The Crop Preserver. The Magic Mat. And free gifts, you've got the Boxers 2.0. And the thing I love, the Shed. Right, that toiletry bag that says Manscaped across it. You take all of your travel. Absolutely love it. Get 20% off and free shipping. Manscaped.com. Promo code GOBLUE. Take the hassle out of your holiday shopping for guys in your life. You want to buy for some family member, buy for a guy in your life, ladies, or hey, guys, just nudge the lady. Hey, get me some Manscaped if you're looking for an easy-to-buy gift. Go to manscaped.com. Make sure you're using the promo code GOBLUE. I was actually a little shocked by this, Jack. All this stuff in the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, you buy it separately, $257, $139.99 is the price they have, plus you get an extra 20% off. I think it's $28, quick math in my head, and free shipping. So altogether, 46% off versus buying it separately. Link, by the way, down in the comments in the description of today's video. So they're saying Alabama will kill Michigan is what the casuals are saying. I don't agree at all. I don't think that Michigan should be scared of this Alabama team. I think they need to prepare for it. They need to bring the best game of their life, their A game. But let's take a look at the stats here. Let's take a look at this Alabama offense that didn't even know who their quarterback was 3 or 4 games into the season. Number 53 offense in college football. Passing a little bit better than I expected, right? They're averaging 228 yards passing a game. Rushing, I think, a little less than I expected. Points per game, though, much like Michigan's offense. They put the ball in the end zone, also take advantage of an opportunistic defense and special teams from time to time, other than the defensive side of the ball. Not Nick Saban's best offense, certainly isn't their best defense statistically or by talent. I think they've got a couple good defensive ends. They've got very, very strong cornerbacks, but they've given up some yards. We've seen teams run on them, including Auburn, kind of ran, I don't want to say all over them, but it definitely had some success. And they've given up some points, about 20 points per game. That's not like a shutdown defense at all. So I'm not scared at all of this Alabama team. I think you look at every position, people say, okay, look at these Alabama cornerbacks. Okay, but I don't think either one of them is better than Will Johnson. Maybe as a group, but Mike Sander's still a cornerback. Defensive line, that might be the strength of their team. I think Michigan's defensive line is better and deeper, especially in the middle. Offensive line, Alabama at one point was giving up more sacks this year, like 4 or 5 weeks ago, than any other team in the Power 5. So I'm not scared at all. Nick Saban does have 7 national championships, 6 at Alabama, 1 at LSU. I think that's the one area, despite our love for Jim Harbaugh, you could say that they have a decided advantage over the Wolverines. I think every other position, maybe you could argue Alabama at wide receiver. But other than that, I'm not scared. I think Michigan probably got an easier matchup than they should have last year, or should they expected to in a CFP game with TCU. They blew that opportunity. Maybe they think they have a harder matchup this year than they should have. Oh, man, the SEC champ is ranked number 4. We got screwed. We should have got Florida State. Whatever. If you want to win the national championship, I think you would have to beat an SEC team regardless. Let's say it was Alabama-Washington. Alabama gets that win. Michigan beats Texas. Okay, you got to face them there. You get over this hurdle, just like Ohio State did against a number 1 Alabama in 2014. You go, and you're favored by anywhere from 5 to 7 points over either Texas or Washington in the national championship. Take down the big boss, number 4 ranked Crimson Tide. I think the worst of Saban's, I believe it's 8 college football playoff teams that he's had in this 10-year, 14 CFP era. Next up is JJ McCarthy has got to throw it away. This is something I've been thinking about for weeks, but Maryland game for sure. Ohio State game did a pretty good job. Actually made maybe some better plays than we'd expected on the run. But that whole turnaround thing that Devin Gardner used to do, it got him in some trouble. He's got to throw the ball away instead of taking those sacks when he's trying to run away from defensive linemen, interior defensive guys. I'm talking about when he's still in that little pocket area in between the hash marks. Once he breaks containment, cool. If he gets outside, great, JJ. Take off, do your thing, go run, go throw down the field. But when he is trapped in the pocket or inside the hash marks, he has got to learn to throw away. I can't remember a time, frankly, in his Michigan career, right? Started 26 games. In my mind, I can't think of a time where JJ McCarthy was trapped, was going to take a sack, and saved it by just using that, first ground grade arm of his and throwing the ball out of bounds, or, you're throwing at somebody's feet, something like that, just not to take an 11-yard loss or a 7-yard loss or a 10-yard loss. That will kill Michigan against Alabama if they get into a 2nd and 18 or 3rd and 12 situation. If JJ were to lose, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 yards on a sack. Speaking of that game, I want to hear your early predictions. We are 1 month away, almost to the hour, right? I think the game will kick off in about 28 days and 3 hours from now as we are filming. Predict the score, Michigan, Alabama. My early score prediction, 24-17 Michigan. I think it's definitely going to be a defensive slanted battle, and Michigan's got a different defensive approach they got to take with this one, because I don't think they've ever seen a quarterback like Jalen Milroe. Not saying he is all world or anything, but he's kind of built like a tight end. He's actually kind of like Alex Orji, but he can throw the ball a little bit better. So Michigan's got to lock down the passing game, of course, and then have 1 or 2 players spying on him. Hell, Georgia had 2 players at all times spying Milroe. Number 4, overreaction. I just love this one. In your face, Tony Petitti, you weasel, you kind of scumbag, just I don't know, just a guy that rubs me the wrong way. Everything he has done over the past 5-6 weeks feels like he's a weasel, feels like he has no spine and just kowtows to whatever the media says or whatever coaches put pressure on him. Jim Harbaugh had Zach Zinter accept the Big Ten championship trophy. Zinter there in a wheelchair, 2 broken bones in his legs. And then Petitti kind of walked off. But I think the narrative was explained a little different. And we went back, looked at the film, looked at some stuff on the field. Petitti actually kind of stayed on the stage for a few moments after Zach Zinter stood up and held it. Jim Harbaugh comes up. Joel Klatt calls him up. And Harbaugh does this, right? And he says the really funny thing, he throws up the how great it feels, all the adversity, et cetera, et cetera. There was, though, a brief handshake. And I'm talking brief. Now, it looks in this photo that Harbaugh's like, let me tell you something, Petitti. Looks like he's poking him in the chest, doesn't it, Jack? Looks like he's like, let me tell you something, pal. He's palling him right there. It's not really how it went down. He may have just been kind of pointing or saying, hey, there he is. They did shake hands for literally half a second, and then Petitti walked to the back of the stage and then apparently off the stage. They did so handshake it, but little Tony, you're all grown up, got your big boy job, and the line from Goodfellas, which I love, which is one of my go-to all the times, gets the best way to belittle somebody. Now, in the movie, though, the guy who gets told this actually comes back and stabs the hell out of the guy who says it, so I hope that doesn't happen here with Petitti and Harbaugh. But I'm saying this on behalf of all Michigan football fans. Listen here, Tony. Listen here, Anthony. Go home and get your shine box, little boy, because that is what you act like a child in how you approach this Big Ten championship ceremony, how you approach the last 6 weeks in dealing with the Big Ten champions in your face. Go get your shine box because you are not ready for the big time. I think your time as Big Ten commissioner will be about as long as COVID Kevin Warren, who was like 2 years max and run for the first job in the NFL that he could get because he couldn't handle the pressure of big-time college football. And you, Tony, have proven yourself cannot do that also. Are you guys headed out to Pasadena for the Rose Bowl? 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. local time. About the middle of the third quarter, the sun sets over those San Gabriel Mountains. It's like a pink sky. It's absolutely beautiful. Been to 3 Rose Bowls myself over the years. Absolutely stunning place to watch a game, but it is impossible to get in and out. It's like 2 hours to get in there, 2.5 hours to get out of it. It's absolutely insane. There's like one-way road that gets in and out, like a one-lane road, I should say, on either side. So my advice, if you're going, park like a mile and a half and just do a 45-minute walk rather than sit in your car an hour and a half, 2 hours just to park next to the stadium down in that big grassy area around the Rose Bowl. I'm going. I'm typing 1. Let me know 1 or 0, yes or no, down in the comments. 28 days from today, Michigan will be at the Rose Bowl on the field for warm-ups, getting ready to take on an Alabama team that, frankly, they stuck with in 2019 with Shea Patterson and that team. After the 2019 season, obviously without Tua, Mac Jones came in as the backup quarterback with everybody else on that Alabama team. But in the second half, Alabama proved their dominance. We got JJ McCarthy, Will Johnson, Drake Nugent. You got to be healthy. This offensive line has got to figure it out, and something's got to change with JJ McCarthy because from what we know, he got dinged up a little bit in the Purdue game where he had 330 some odd yards. But since then, it's been challenging throwing the ball and even running the ball, going backwards from Saturday's game, 147 yards against Iowa, negative 35 rushing yards, right? And those 4 sacks really knocked him back and hurt his rushing total. Ohio State, 80% passing, but only 148, 1 touchdown, 15 rushing yards, 141 yards, and an interception in the red zone against Maryland. And Penn State, remember that game, 7 of 8, great completion percentage, but only 60 yards. So last 4 games, right? And if you include Purdue, be 5 games, although he had great yards against Purdue. He has had 1 touchdown in the last 5 games. 1 touchdown passing, 1 interception. So J.J. McCarthy has got to level up. They're absolutely going to need him. Last year, TCU, you guys, remember that? TCU's coach said, hey, we're trying to let the quarterback passing force the quarterback to pass to beat us. And J.J. McCarthy, played cool and coy and maybe arrogant with those comments, but he didn't come through on it, right? Through 2 pick sixes. JJ has got to remember these images. This is last year after TCU. He stood out there, hand behind his helmet, just watching, taking in the approach, went to the podium afterwards and talked about it 2 years ago. True freshman. JJ actually came in the fourth quarter, end of the third quarter, played pretty well, threw in a touchdown pass to Andrew Anthony, who went on to Oklahoma, the Diamond Edwards. These are the last 2 years. And they, some people made fun of him last year or 2 years ago. Last year, symbolic. But J.J. McCarthy then went to the podium after last year's loss to TCU. The last thing he said, we'll be back, and I promise that. Stood up, walked off the stage of the press conference after the TCU game. So Michigan is back. They are back for the 3rd straight year. You can't take a 3rd straight loss. I don't think it's anything to do with JJ's legacy. I think Michigan fans will, love him no matter what, etc. happens. But this Michigan team has still got to get over that next hump, have got to prove the doubters wrong, have got to say that we can not just beat up on the Big Ten and, the poor out-of-conference schedule we have. It's time for Michigan to get a big-time out-of-conference win, which, frankly, hasn't happened in a handful of years. The last one, honestly, is number 8 Notre Dame in October of 2019. Some people say Washington in 2021, but that was a bad Washington team. They fired their coach a month or so later after that game. So that is our Overreaction Monday. Make sure you guys are following me. Do it right now. It's at James Yoder on Twitter. I'll put the link down in the comments and the description of today's video. We will have all kinds of Michigan football content here on YouTube, but also, up-to-date stuff on Twitter, transfer portal stuff specifically. Make sure you follow me on Twitter as the quarterback market is really heating up, and maybe J.J. McCarthy could let Michigan know whether he's staying or leaving in time for the Wolverines to get a big-time transfer quarterback. We'll be back on Tuesday with another Michigan Football Report video. Till then, go Blue.